Hey guys, how are you? We've got these big lights on in this room. Well, we'll have to just deal with it. How's everybody today? It's lovely to see you. Happy 11 a.m. All righty. So we are here today to discuss success through teams, and ultimately this session was put together to give everybody who is curious about either starting a team or joining a team kind of the big picture basics about what that looks like, how it's different inside of our market centers, what our local rules are about it, how it looks kind of from the state level. But really, the idea of this session is to keep everybody on the same page, right? And so what that means is, if you're looking to start a team, this is your first stop. Your next stop is then your team leader to have that discussion. If you're looking to join a team, your first stop is here, and then your next stop is your team leader to have that discussion, so that then your team leaders can assist you in either finding good talent or finding good talent either way, whether you're looking to start or join a team. That talent search is always kind of better and more successful when you include your team leaders in that. And what we found over time was that people were having conversations inside of the market centers that didn't include any of us, and sometimes incorrect information was being pushed back and forth. So what we wanted to do was kind of retake the reins on delivering the information so that everyone hears it from the same source, and then how you guys choose to kind of move forward and customize off of a foundation is of course always up to you. But we wanted to make sure that people had it from the market centers directly and consistently first, so that you're the last thing we want is to have to, as much fun as it is presiding over bringing people together in terms of team building, it's very much not fun when you have to preside over the divorces, right? Because nobody thinks they're going to get divorced when they get married, because they're in love, everything's great, everything's wonderful, right? And then sometimes things change. And so the reality of this is it's kind of part of the prenuptial conversation, right? We want to make sure everyone's kind of on the same page, which then prevents any issues from occurring later on. And if issues do crop up, everyone knows exactly what they said yes to and what they said no to, and we can help you guys in a more specific manner, because we all rooted ourselves in a foundational conversation, which is what I'll turn to now. So just a bit of background as to what this is about and why it was created. So here's the structure. I'm going to kind of run through why join a team, what are the opportunities, what is the structure, how does it kind of look, and please feel free to ask questions along the way. I want this to be as interactive as possible, and yet I do want to make sure that we get through some of the foundational content as well. So if you have a question, just kind of raise your hand or raise your little Zoom hand or unmute. I'll watch the participant list as well and call on you for questions. So it is true that one of the main questions that we get, that means me, your team leaders, get asked by either people new to our company or newer agents into the market center, or people looking for a different opportunity, is, well, should I do it alone or should I join a team? Should I continue to do it alone or should I consider joining a team? Should I continue to do it alone or should I start a team, right? And the whole idea of today is to outline like the pros and the cons of what all that looks like, because there are both. Just by the way, it's not all roses and sunshine. There are pros and cons to that growth. And when I say cons, what I mean are there are sometimes sacrifices that are made when you either join or start a team. And just discuss kind of openly what the pros and cons on each side are, and then move from there. And so setting the foundation. Remember, there is no right or wrong answer to the question, should I go it alone or join a team? It's a personal question. It's a personal decision. And so please don't hear anything that's discussed today as here's the right answer and here's the wrong answer, because that's going to live with each of you individually. We have a lot of really successful solo agents in our world, and we have a lot of really successful teams and team agents in our world, right? And so so just based on that alone, you can kind of see there is no right or wrong answer. It's really just what works for each. So let's start with a quick review of, like, why would people join teams? And so as I go through this list, I want you to, I mean, looking around the room, I see that there's a lot of different experience levels on this call today, which is awesome. And so if you're here because you are thinking about joining a team, you're going to focus in on what I'm saying from the perspective of, like, how do those things kind of affect me? If you're here today because you're looking at expanding your business and starting a team or growing a team, I want you to listen to it from the perspective of, okay, what do I need to have in place? Like, so if he's saying these are the important things that agents who join teams are looking for, do I have those things in place? And if not, how am I going to put those things in place? Right. So there's slightly different listening depending on your intent today, but the information is all the same. Does that make sense, what I just said? Like how you'll hear it? Okay, good. So why do people join teams? So the number one reason why people join teams, what do you think the number one reason people join teams is? Go ahead, Chris.
Well, I'm not sure, but I think it's either mentorship or leads.
Yes, the number one reason, you're 100% right. The number one reason is leads, right? And the number two reason is support, which is how you'll fold mentorship in there. So you got number one and number two. So let's start with leads, right? It's the main reason people join leads, and it's not the best reason, by the way, to join a team, right? So just remember that it is the number one reason that most people do it, but it's not the best reason to say, I think I'm going to move from being on my own to a team, right? Because a lot of people, a common misperception, I think, that exists about joining a team is that, well, once I'm in a team environment, I don't have to lead generate anymore, right? Someone else is going to do all that for me, hand me all the business, and I'll just go and convert and close them. And that is a misperception in most cases, right? Most teams also ask that you bring along a version of lead generation. You know, a team may support the lead generation. A team may even do a lot of or most of the lead generation, but I don't know of rainmakers that exist that don't ask of their team members not to explore their own databases, right? Not to generate leads at open houses, participate in like a sign in to win type event with their own contacts and whatnot, right? So remember that leads, awesome reason, and yet if you're joining a team simply because I don't want to have to generate leads on my own, I'll just go and have them handed to me, that you're probably going to have a slightly different conversation with the team that you end up having conversations with, and there'll be an expectation that you're going to help grow that business as well. So as it relates to leads, we suggest that you discuss the following with a team that you are considering joining, or for those of you looking to start or grow a team, answer these questions on your own so that you have the answers ready when you are interviewing for talent. You know what? So if I join your team, do I lead generate too, or just work the leads that are given to me? Like, what's the structure around that? What lead generation systems does the team have in place? Right? Do they already prospect into a database successfully? Are they big? Is the Rainmaker a big expired person? Are there open houses that are done at a really high level? What about internet lead sources? Are there Facebook campaigns generating leads? Are the teams buying leads from Zillow or from some other pay service, right? And how does that work? How are the leads distributed, right? If you're the only person on the team who's receiving leads, or are there other people on the team receiving leads as well, right? So a lot of conversation needs to be had around what you can expect. And again, rainmakers or rainmakers to be, you need to have some questions around that information as well. How is it I'm going to handle those kinds of situations, and how am I prepared and ready to answer those questions? Am I prepared and ready to look attractive to people? Right? If I were sitting having a conversation with Steve about joining his team, and I asked the question, what lead generation systems does the team have in place? And he said something to me like, oh, well, it just kind of comes to me. Like, oh, well, that's great. I'm so glad we could spend this time. Have a lovely afternoon. Bye-bye. Right? Because it just comes to me. That doesn't give me now comfort as a member of that team that there's going to be business. There's no structure in place, right? So I'm sitting here thinking, if I wanted it to just be casual and, I hope something happens this week, I could just stay on my own for that, right? That's what I'm doing myself. So you see my point, right? Another great question to ask is, what kind of inventory does the team carry, right? If the team is looking for some assistance with buyer leads, well, does the team carry a high enough level of inventory to create buyer leads at a consistent level, either from call-ins or internet leads or whatnot, right? Inventory is the key to growth. And so what does that inventory look like for that rainmaker or that team? Is the rainmaker themselves a listings-focused rainmaker, right? Again, rainmakers to be, you're asking yourselves these questions. Am I listings-focused? What does that look like? How many listings did I take last year? Is it enough to generate enough business that I can now be not just feeding myself, but other people as well? So that's kind of the leads conversation, right? Any questions on the leads conversation? And so if there are questions about money and leads, we're going to get to money in a little bit. So hold any money questions till we get to money. Okay, so moving on. Chris hit number 2 as well. The second reason that people look to join teams is support, right? And support can show up in a number of different ways. The first way, administrative support, right? And so people are looking to join a team because they either feel like they need some administrative support and either can't afford it on their own, or don't quite know how to structure their business, or they're looking to get into business with someone that, like, let's scratch our heads a little bit. If my business now all of a sudden goes from where it is to here, right, we're going to have this increase by 25 or 35 or 50% in terms of the business that I'm now doing. My question mark is, how am I going to support all that? I don't have time to do the paperwork on what I do on my own already. And so administrative support can be an important attractor, right? Rainmakers to be. If you don't have administrative support in place, it is, by the MREA model, step number 1, right? You go from solo to solo plus an administrator, and then solo plus an administrator and a half or 2 before typically you add in an additional agent. And the reason for that is, if you now have 2 agents and no administrative support, well, now the rainmaker is sitting thinking, okay, well, the good news is I have some help here, and perhaps falsely assuming that that second productive real estate agent has the time or the talent to actually take care of the back end as well. And the agent who's hired to the team is like, well, part of the reason I'm on the team and giving a large portion of my commission to the team is because I expected support. And so you have these 2 people running like crazy to get all this business done, and the back end of it is falling apart. I've seen more failure in partnerships and team building by that issue not being addressed, by not having the right administrative support before the productive agents get in business together. So just watch that, right? A team's going to have some kind of administration in place. The assistant, that administrative help is there to kind of remove the paperwork side of the business from the team members' plate and the Rainmakers' plate. Provide operations support, like scheduling of open houses or client care or marketing or database management, things like that. Right, the administrator on a team could be responsible for running a program like Sign In to Win for all the members on the team, so that each team member doesn't necessarily have to do all the pieces themselves. So things like that, to have administrative support around, is another real attractor for talented people to join somebody else's team. Another version of support is what Chris mentioned. That's coaching and consulting, right? Mentoring. Does the team provide an environment where you can get assistance from the leader of the team to help you convert leads to appointments, to help you get offers accepted and deals closed, right? Or are you still kind of on your own on that, right? There are questions that can be asked around that. I would ask point blank. I'm curious, what kind of assistance can you or will you provide for me to help me grow from here to here? I seem to struggle I don't seem to struggle meeting people and having the conversation about signing them, but I struggle moving them forward and actually getting them to a closing table. Is there assistance that you can provide in that arena? So Rainmakers or Rainmakers to be prepared to offer a level of support from a coach's perspective, from a leadership perspective, to grow people from where they are to where they want to go. And that can be specific in terms of diagnosing where their business might need some attention and obtaining some help or attention on that for them, or just kind of doing sometimes it's just a matter of hand-holding, right? So it's, all right, I'm not good at this. Can you help me with this? And for the first couple of transactions, there is some hand-holding that goes on to work them through any area where there may need to be some improvement, right? And those of you looking to join a team, again, ask those questions. Ask those questions. Are there weekly meetings to check in? Are there, is the Rainmaker focused on my goals, or are they focused on their own goals? Right? Who's going to help me grow and learn? The team may encourage you to participate in certain things that the Market Center does. Some teams require certain classes and things to be done at the Market Center level, because for Rainmakers and Rainmakers to be, recognize that even though you're growing your own organization inside of the Market Center, you're still inside the Market Center, and it's crazy not to utilize the tools and the leverage opportunity that I and others provide at the Market Center level, so that you don't have to take it all on your own, right? It's part of the synergy of growing an organization inside of an organization. Right, I chose to grow my organization inside of Gary's organization for very specific reasons. Like, I wanted to be in business with someone who was willing and able to use their experience to help me and give me some tools that created leverage for me, so I didn't have to necessarily reinvent everything. Right? See how that works? Another level of support could be accountability. Right? The team could provide a level of accountability for you to hit certain numbers each week or each month, be checking in with you to make sure you're on track to hit your financial goals. And for some people, just having somebody else involved in that is enough to create different results, right? Because for the most part, most of us as humans are not so great at holding ourselves accountable to ourselves, right? And so there's that level of accountability. What I think is cool is that accountability goes both ways, right? So you get into business with somebody else, and sometimes the team member is looking to be held accountable to achieve more, and sometimes the Rainmaker is looking to get into business with other people to make sure that they're playing at their highest level, right? It's like deciding to go to the gym at 6 o'clock every morning. But when I go, sometimes it's cold and I don't want to roll out of bed and whatnot. But if Amy and I now have an agreement that we're going to meet at the gym at 6 o'clock every morning, well, just the fact that I said I would meet her there, I'm now accountable to somebody else and I don't want her to have to show up by herself and not have me be there. So it's me raising my level because I've said I would to somebody else. So it's kind of a nice synergy. Excuse me a second. Sorry, my water was just out of my reach. And then, of course, one of the keys to support is technology. What kind of technology does the team use, right? Is the team using some system? Is the team, up to speed on command for teams? Are they using command at a high level to automate a lot of things? And maybe you're not as a solo agent, and so jumping in and joining a team could help you from a technology perspective. I see that happen kind of the flip side as well. I see some people who are on their own, who are using technology at a high level, and they look to get into business with a team who's really not using technology at a high level. And sometimes that's not a deal breaker, because the rainmaker gets to say to the team agent, hey, you know what, if you can bring those skills along and kind of help the whole organization kind of dive into that, we'll just flip what we're doing into that technology suite. So recognize that there's benefits there with people's interests as well as people's talents from a technology perspective. And sometimes teams are using other versions of technology that maybe you don't want to have to purchase on your own. Maybe it's something that you've always had your eye on, but you're not doing enough business or earning enough to dive into it on your own. And so by getting into business with someone else, if that exists already, you get an opportunity to utilize a tool or a system that helps you grow and achieve. The third reason, so we've gone through leads, we've gone through support, right? The third reason that people get into business on a team is the idea of reduced expenses, right? And so I want to just throw a word of caution out around reduced expenses, because you don't necessarily have reduced expenses just because you've joined a team. So let's just talk about that, right? On some teams, you may enjoy reduced expenses versus being a solo agent, in that sometimes teams cover basic expenses like either like your desk at the office, or perhaps that annual KW support fee. Sometimes your license or your board dues or MLS dues are covered, while still others might cover some education costs, or a trip. I know when we had agents on our team, we offered one, either a mega camp or a family reunion, as long as they hit a certain number of transactions, that we would cover the basic costs of that educational event, right? Airfare and registration and a shared hotel. So all of those things have everything to do with the person or organization that you're looking to get into business with, or rainmakers or rainmakers to be, what you're going to offer. How are you being attractive to attract top talent, right? And so all of those things are discussions. Please be clear. What the list I just gave you, not everybody covers that. Not everybody covers that right out the bat. Sometimes there's a structure that's built that says, so for the first 6 months, you kind of cover everything. And then if you're producing at a certain level, I will retroactively reimburse you for this and that, and or at 6 months, if you've hit a certain level of production, then I'll start covering some of those costs moving forward. So it can be a tiered system. It can be an all or nothing system. It can be based on production. It can be based on whatever the rainmaker and you kind of decide, but ask some questions around that. Don't make an assumption that getting into business with someone else all of a sudden means that all of your expenses evaporate, because it's a poor assumption to make, and it's typically not accurate. And so we encourage you to ask lots of questions around expenses. Fourth reason people get into business with teams: environment. For some, like the camaraderie and environment that's fostered by a team is a real attraction, right? Some teams are like families. Others are more like businesses. Guys, give me half a second. I'm going to put you on mute. I've got a tickle in my throat that's less funny than tickle seems to indicate. So environment, like what kind of environment are you getting yourselves into? There are some, again, that are really tight and behave and feel like family. There are some that are really more of a business environment, right? Some a blend of both. In some team environments, team members come in and lead generate together. Others, they do it separately. Some teams kind of host team masterminds to solve problems or set goals or policy. Some take trips or education together, and others do not. We have lots of different teams already in our organization that kind of go from a more business-like environment all the way up to a real family-style environment. And so you have to figure out, if you're looking to join a team, you need to figure out what kind of environment really excites you. What kind of world do you want to live in? Who is it you're looking to be in business with? Who are you looking to surround yourself with? And if you're looking to start or grow a team, you need to recognize that environment is an important piece of the puzzle, and make some decisions about the environment you look to foster, right? A lot of times people don't really think about environment. And I'll tell you that one of the bigger issues that we've had over time is people getting into business with others who then just have a mismatch. The money's fine and the leads are, everything's worked out because there was a structure, but nobody ever talked about environment, right? I'll tell you, when Debbie and I decided to get into business together, all 2 decades or so ago, we dated for 6 months, like business dated. We made a decision to get into business together. We had a whole bunch of conversations, and then we decided to live as though we were in business together for 6 months, to make sure that, we did it for one very, very specific reason. We wanted to be certain that 6 months later, we could still stand each other, that there weren't things about the way I did business or the way she did business or the way I talked on the phone or the way she talked on the phone or the way whatever, that weren't going to drive each other nuts. And we wanted to kind of test out environment with each other. So we put together a plan and then lived as though that plan were real for 6 months, just to kind of see what would happen before we actually pulled the trigger and signed some stuff. So just remember, environment is important. And then, of course, the last thing, schedule and flexibility. Schedule and flexibility. It might be easier for you to go on vacation if there's somebody else around to handle some of the business while you're there, or take a weekend off if someone's around to kind of cover things for you. You may also have slightly more flexibility in your schedule if the administrative support now is there also, right? Because you're less involved in the back end. So schedule and flexibility is just another one of those things that is a reason that some people get into business on a team. Any questions on any of that? I'm going to move to money now. I want to talk about money. All righty. We're like, yeah, why not? Okay. So in a team environment, right, if you are joining someone else's team or starting your own or looking to grow your own, remember that the money ultimately isn't all yours, right? You're now in business with others. And so there are divisions of commissions, both on the buy side and on the list side, that you have to be aware of, right? So on most teams, depending on the piece of business, you will earn between 0 and 50 or so percent, sometimes 0 to 60%, depending on your experience level or length of time with the team. Let me talk about what I mean by 0 to 50 or 0 to 60%, right? one of the things that you have to figure out is who you want to be in a team environment. And Rainmakers, you need to figure out how you're going to work with team agents, right? 5 or 10 years ago, team growth was kind of all about, let's find agents to work on the buy side of the business, right? Who are the buyer's agents? And the Rainmaker oftentimes would remain as the listing specialist in that scenario and look to leverage a lot of the buyers. And what's happened in the last, certainly in the last 5 years especially, is that some team organizations have kind of morphed from buyer's agents to team agents, which means now you're a team agent in an organization. You have the opportunity certainly to work the buyers that come your way from the team. But what about listings, right? What's the conversation around listings? Are there opportunities for me to list properties on my own underneath the team umbrella? And if so, how does that work, right? Or not, right? In some team organizations, the answer is no. The Rainmaker or the listing specialist, if there's another team member who's the listing specialist who maybe isn't the Rainmaker, is tasked with the list side of things, and agents on the team refer listing opportunities into the team and get paid either zero or up to a referral fee, oftentimes 25% for those listing referrals, right? Why zero? Well, on some teams, the thought process is, well, if you are there for the buy sides, right? If you're a buyer's agent inside of this organization, when you come across listing opportunities, the job really is to produce those listing opportunities, push them into the team so the team can list them to create more buyer sides for you, right? And so there is one school of thought that says the team doesn't really pay a referral fee on those. The other school of thought is if the team is offering a referral fee on pushing list sides into the team or to the listing specialist on the team, that if there were compensation involved, the team member may decide to push more listings right into the team. So again, when we had buyer specialists on our team, we always looked at a 25% referral fee back for any listing possibility that was pushed into the team. And now what's happening as people are getting more and more experience and people have longevity on their teams, those buyer's agents are now also listing, right? And so there are opportunities. I know Jody has a bunch of team members who list, and Jeannie and Todd have a bunch of team members who list. Andy Sachs has a bunch of team members who list, right? And so there's different versions of what that could look like, which will, depending on what the setup is in the team that you're interviewing in, or again, Rainmakers, the team that you're designing and structuring, how will that will be attractive to some and less attractive to others. But from a money perspective, in a lot of scenarios, buy sides are typically done at a 50-50 split, which I will tell you nationwide is we actually tend to have higher buy side splits on teams than a lot of the rest of the country. There are a lot of large teams throughout the rest of the country that are really more at 30 to 40% on the buy side. For the most part, our teams are paying 50%. And again, the 50% of the buy side that you are delivering back to the team covers oftentimes the generation of that lead, oftentimes all the things that we talked about, right? The support, the coaching, the consulting, if the Rainmaker is covering some expenses for you or many of your expenses. So all those things aren't free, right? They come at a cost. The Rainmaker has to write checks that you're now not writing to run the business, and so therefore looks at a portion of that commission. If in fact your organization allows for a team agent to also list, again, the way most people are working this right now is when you're new to the team, there is no list side available for you, and after a certain period of time, you then can start listing, because the list side is, generally speaking, listing the way the team would list, the way the organization would list. And so there's that opportunity for you to learn from the Rainmaker about what that looks like. And yet again, there are some teams that are hiring team agents right out of the bat. And so it's just a different division of numbers, right? A lot of times in teams where agents are listing, instead of a 50-50 split on the listing side, it's a 60 or a 65, 30, 35, 40 split, right? So, and that if it was 65, 35, that is in favor of the team, of the Rainmaker, because the Rainmaker still has all the expenses to carry the listing, right? And so the agent is earning more on the list side than just a referral fee. And in many organizations, they're allowed to go ahead and be that point person as a listing agent, and yet still need to recognize that there are expenses that are being paid on their behalf. So the money, and I know there's some questions, I'm going to stop in just half a second. The money is something that, again, you need to be really, really clear about structurally, how it works, what is your opportunity, what is the organization offering? Are you a team agent right from the start? Are you a buyer's agent from the start? If you're a buyer's agent from the start and you desire listings, what does that look like in terms of you getting there? Is it time? Is it number of units? Is it, how do I turn into a team agent who can also list? So it's just a matter of building a structure that makes sense for everybody, and that everyone can agree to. Any questions on some of the money things I just talked about? Go ahead, Dana.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So let's say hypothetically, because I'm a little confused with all these percents you're talking about. Now, are these percents, for example, if there's a listing, let's say, and the gross commission part that comes back to the listing agent side, team side, let's say is $10,000 that it generated as the commission. So then Keller Williams, the Market Center, gets its cut of that 10,000 first, and then these percentages you're talking about, like 50% or 60%, get of what's left after the team has its split with the Market Center. Is that how it works?
Yeah. So teams don't have a split with the Market Center. The Market Center has a relationship agent by agent by agent, even if you are on a team. And so if the commission is $10,000, right, and that commission is, and let's just say I'm on your team, Dana, right, and our agreement is 50-50 on that $10,000. When that comes into the Market Center, that gets split 50% to you and 50% to me. So it's 5 and 5. And then depending on where each of us are on our caps, then the Market Center will reduce that $5,000 for each of us by whatever it is. If you're not capped, you'll pay company dollar and royalty. If you're capped on one or both of them, then you just get the $5,000. But the split happens first, and then each agent, depending on where they are in their cap, has those numbers adjusted based on their own personal relationship with the Market Center. Okay. What else?
I think I understand.
What else? Anything else on money?
I have a quick question. If you were a member of a team, can you then cap earlier than individually?
So not typically, right? And
Okay.
this is a common misperception, right? Because agents who join teams after a 12-month waiting period can kind of apply to the Market Center for a cap reduction. That cap reduction is typically 50% of the cap. But I want you to think about it. If you're that's not just because we woke up one day and said, hey, let's give team members a lower cap. What we did was we woke up and said, okay, so team members typically have a 50% expense, right, to be on a team. And so it takes the same number of transactions for a team member to cap than a solo agent to cap. We just wanted to make sure it was fair in the eyes of how the money worked, such that if you're at a 50% split with the team and 50-50 is going back to the team each time, doesn't it make sense then to equalize for team members the same numbers, or at least as close as we possibly can, the same numbers in terms of allowing them to cap. So it is true that team members, again, if you're hired from inside of the market center, there is a 12-month waiting period where you just have your own full caps. And then after 12 months, the team member can apply to the market center for a reduction of 50% of that. But it's not really that they cap faster. It's really giving them an opportunity to cap at the same time or the same level in terms of units produced, because of the 50-50 scenario that they are now living in. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
I mean, that made me more confused, actually. So does that mean, so that it's really the first year it would take the new team member, in essence, like twice as many transactions to get capped, because they're only making 50% of the income that their market center fees royalty is taken off of?
So in theory, yes, that answer in theory is yes. However, oftentimes what we find is that agents who choose to then join a team aren't really at that cap level just yet. And so what are we really talking about, right? We're not talking about taking longer. We're talking about creating an opportunity for oneself to get in business with somebody who has the leads and the support and the environment in place to have people kind of perform at a higher level. What else? Yes, Dave.
Is there ever a team structure in which it's kind of like a pool? And I'd imagine this might be something for a smaller team, or is it always the case where the rainmaker gets the lion's share and everyone underneath that rainmaker is subject to the percentages you were laying out earlier?
So I'll answer that this way, because I'm not sure exactly what you mean by a pool. Remember that in an organization, somebody has to write the checks, somebody has to cover the expenses, right? And so I think it's a mistake to assume that the rainmaker gets the lion's share, right? And so I just want to caution us with how we're thinking about that. It may seem like, wow, well, the rainmaker gets 50% of every single thing I do, and yes, that is true. And the rainmaker also gets to write all the checks as well, right? Because a lot of those responsibilities don't fall onto the team members, and so there is a balancing act there. Yep. There are some scenarios in our organization where really productive team members earn more than their rainmakers.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. And it makes sense why the rainmaker would get that lion's share, because they're the only one paying the expenses offered. But is there ever been a team, to your knowledge, that is like a community based on both ends of it, where the expenses shared throughout the entire team, and therefore it's kind of like a apples to apples community based, team structure, I guess? Does that make sense?
It makes maybe some sense. I think what you're describing more is perhaps really more of a, I think Debbie just said it in the chat. Debbie, what did you just say in the chat? Did you just say partnership?
Yeah, yes. More of a partnership than a team. Yeah.
Yeah. So
okay.
It's when you bring two comparable businesses together, like what we did many thousands of years ago. Two similar businesses together, and then you share it all 50-50.
Yep.
Yes. So true. So true.
Okay. No, that's a good answer to my question. Thank you.
Yeah. What other questions exist?
I just have another one. If you're on a team with other buyers agents, how are sort of, I guess, leads funneled through? Is there a typical way that's?
Yeah, so great question. And again, this is a big reason why we have something like Success Through Teams, to really kind of lay a foundation, because there are about as many different ways for how leads are distributed as there are teams, right? There are some teams who just do a simple round robin. right? There are some teams that do things broken down by price points, right? Certain and seniority, right? There are some teams that have production qualifications, that if you're at this level, well, then you get these numbers, and if you're at this level, right, you have to kind of earn the right to obtain more leads. Again, there's no right or wrong answer to it, and I just in this room, there are teams that operate just very, very differently from each other in terms of how leads are distributed. It's definitely a question that if you're interested in having a conversation around joining or being on a team, that you should ask the Rainmaker. How does that work? What are the results of the structure that you have, right? Maybe have conversations with the team agents that are already on that team. Hey, how's that working? You know, it's different than what I may be used to or what I was thinking. How is that working? Right, you have to be certain that you're doing your homework. Whether you're a Rainmaker looking for talent or you're talent looking for a team, you have to do your homework. You have to have conversations. You have to be a business professional and ask all these things, right? This is recorded, so you can, if you weren't writing down the questions and the conversations to be having, you can go back and kind of re-listen to this to kind of jot that down to see what that looks like. Couple of quickies, and then oh, Amy, go ahead.
For other Rainmakers out there, okay, let's have the assumption that you have a team member that's doing both the list side and the buy side, and that team member brings a listing of his or her own to the team. Are other Rainmakers then making sure that it's consistent across the board in all listings and doing everything the same, and therefore picking up all the expenses to get that listing onto the market?
So the question is, does it become a team listing even if that person is staying the point person? And if so, which, by the way, the answer to that, I'll answer, because it kind of has to, right? Remember, building a team with some of the incentives that are offered at the market center level, like a reduced cap at some point. Building a team is not about let's push a couple of people together and decide that I'm the Rainmaker and somebody else is not, right? And everyone can kind of behave as if they're solo agents, but we'll call ourselves a team. And I know that's not what you were asking, Amy, but it's a valid point as a corollary to make. And so the idea of our team policy at the market center level absolutely says that when you are a team member, right, that's one of the sacrifices that you make. You kind of lose your personal identity. You kind of lose, you do things in the name of the team, in the name of the organization. You do things the way the organization does those things, right? So if I were that Rainmaker and this is the way all of my listings had this, and this, had this kind of photography and had these kind of floor plans and had these kinds of brochures or whatever that standard was, yes, even a team member in my world would be absolutely expected to follow that standard, and it should and look similar to the outside world, right? Be listed under the team code, right, in the MLS, and have the team sign up, right? So you can't be separate and a team. You have to make a choice. It's one or the other. Does that help answer that in terms of?
Yeah, but the Rainmaker still covers all those expenses, even though the Rainmaker didn't generate that specific listing lead.
They certainly can. Again, there's no right or wrong to that. They certainly can. I think most of our organizations currently have scenarios set up where if they have team members who are listing, there is a slightly different split than if they were just referring a listing into the team. And the different split takes into consideration that the team still has some of those expenses. Because the split is it's not a 50-50 split. It's a higher split to the Rainmaker side because those expenses show up. Does that help? Okay. Any other questions? I know we have some Rainmakers who want to just pop in and say hello. Give me about 90 seconds with a couple of quickies. Just remember, if you're currently in productivity coaching, joining a team does not void or invalidate your productivity coaching contract, right? And so your productivity coaching contract with the Market Center with the productivity coaching team stays intact. That's a point of conversation, because if in fact you then join a team, right, the productivity coach gets paid off of the gross. And so if you now are a part of a team, the gross includes the Rainmaker's side of the productivity coaching, the Rainmaker's side of that transaction. And so there are some numbers that we'd all have to sit and kind of talk through. The Rainmaker needs to understand you're in productivity coaching, because that's a different, there are some different costs involved for the Rainmaker on that. And you have to remember that your productivity coaching contract continues through to the end of that contract, even when you join a team. What's cool about it is that a lot of Rainmakers look at that as leverage for themselves. And so they're happy to have you be a part of that. And then there are some who are less happy about the fact that it impacts some of the finances. You have to have those conversations up front to know if that's a team that might make sense for you or not. I think that's kind of all of my notes. And so what I want to do is, I know we have, just looking around, we have Jody and Jeannie and tell me if there's more, Christine. So some Rainmakers on the call, and if you guys want to just unmute and tell everybody who you are, and if in fact you're looking for talent at the moment and what kind of talent you might be looking for, that would be awesome. Jeannie, go ahead.
So I am Jeannie Kassendorf. I run the Auslander Kassendorf group. We're set up a little bit differently. It's a dual Rainmaker situation. It's myself, it's my business partner, Todd. We have 5 agents on our team. 2 of them are now active. They all represent buyers. 2 of them are active listing agents. And we just brought on our fifth agent. We're currently not looking for anyone right now, but I'm always open. If someone has any questions, they can always feel free to contact me. I'm always happy to talk to anyone in the Market Center.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that.
Welcome.
Jody, did you want to give a?
Okay. Hey there, I'm Jody Boxer. My computer turned off when Dave asked his question about the pool. So, and Rick, so I don't know if you answered it, but I was thinking, there are teams that you go into a pool, but it's more likely that you're in a partnership with another agent. So you're splitting all the expenses and you're, maybe splitting the commissions. That was what came to mind for that. So I run the Boxer Realty Group. We have 5 of us on our team, 2 administrative and 2 other agents. I'm always looking for a great agent. If you've got that personality that you really want to be out there working with buyers and sellers, that's awesome. I do often find that people get into real estate and often have an aha moment saying, oh, I don't know if I want to be in front of people all the time. And sometimes they would prefer back office stuff. So we're also looking for administrative support if you think that is more likely what you want to do. So if you are interested, we would love to see your disc if you have it, a resume if you have it. I think Luke is on the call as well. So Luke, if you have anything to add for this, that would be great.
Yeah, just that we're also looking for an ISA as well. So if anybody's interested in that.
So just explain the ISA.
So that is just like lead nurturing, a lot of follow-up, and cold calling as well.
Awesome. Anybody else? Okay, if no other Rainmakers, any other question? Debbie.
Yeah, I am next on a quest for an assistant. I am looking for someone to be that back office person, and we'll be going through the career visioning process to determine the right candidate for that, as well as looking at showing assistants who would be doing that portion of the buyer work. Those are my roles that I'm on a quest for at the moment.
Excellent. Anybody else? Okay, any other questions that anybody has about anything we discussed or anything we didn't discuss? You're kind of sitting there thinking, well, he didn't address that at all. I think I should ask that. Anything else that you want to ask? Yes, Lenka.
How do the Rainmakers approach potential team members interested to start on a part-time basis? I would like to hear the input from someone who has potentially interviewed other team members that, at least to begin with, could only commit part-time.
Yeah, so I'm going to answer it and then I'll throw it to Jeannie, who raised her hand. The first answer is anybody who is looking to join a team, whether it's full-time or part-time, or start or grow a team, their first stop is always this session. Their second stop is always their team leader, right? And so the idea of, if you have somebody who has come to you and said, you know, I'm looking to kind of do this part-time, the answer is, that sounds awesome. Please go talk to your team leader first, because the team leader will check the list, see if they have attended this, this session or not, such that they can then direct them into this session, because we do have this monthly. We haven't, but we typically have this monthly, so that they can get this data, this information under their belt first, and then connect with a potential rainmaker. So I just want everyone to be clear about what that process looks like, right? We support team growth like crazy. We just need to be a part of the conversation and be involved in it, right? So that everyone is starting from the same level of information. Go ahead, Jeannie, what's the additional answer to that?
So I would say we actually have two agents that are actually part-time on our team. One of them just sold their 14th home of the year. They're almost at 6 million. The other one started 3 months ago, just sold her third home. So you can certainly be on a team and be part-time and be successful. I think the key is making sure the part-time person knows the criteria, what's involved in being an agent. I don't know, I would not shy away. If it's a rock star, I definitely would not shy away from someone if they're part-time. Again, they have to do the DISC career visioning, and then you'll see, like, if that suits your needs. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jeannie.
My pleasure.
Anybody else in our remaining minute or so? Dave, go ahead.
Is it typical to have a team require you to sign like a contract, so you're committed to a certain amount of time period?
So great question. Let's address team contracts. So yes, any team member with the Rainmaker has to have a team contract. The contract isn't necessarily for a specific period of time. However, it does outline the expectations, the standards. There are dissolution clauses that says, okay, so if we get into business together and 6 months later we get out of business together, here's what it looks like. Right? Most teams do not allow people who exit their organization to just take the business that was handed to them for the last 6 months or 6 years with them. Right, and so all of those outlined in the team agreements. The market center must be provided with a copy of that team agreement, because again, we're always the ones who get thrown into the middle of any kind of divorce conversation. So we need to have that data as well. And frankly, in our world, you're not considered a team, which means that the clock doesn't start ticking as a team. If you're looking to get into business with somebody, and then there's that 12-month waiting period before there's any kind of cap adjustment, the clock doesn't start ticking until your MCA, the MCA in your market center, receives a signed team agreement, right? So there's absolutely in writing 100%. I'm happy to sit with anybody and either review a team agreement if you've been given one to sign, or help you write a team agreement if you're on the other side of that. We do not provide templates, and we don't provide templates for the same reason that Keller Williams Realty doesn't provide templates to us. It has everything to do with exposure liability and protection around lawsuits because you're independent contractors, right? So I'm happy to sit down and have a conversation around what it needs to look like. We'll even give you examples of other, Jeannie has given us an example, and Jody has given us an example, and Debbie has given us an example. And so we're happy to provide examples from from your colleagues around what they do. And when they come to you, what will be said is, here are some examples of what some of your colleagues do. Please note that this is not the Market Center telling you exactly what to, how to write your contract. So we'll be as helpful as we possibly can without crossing the line of saying, here, this is what you must do. Because again, it's an independent contractor and brokerage thing. Does that help answer that?
Definitely. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? Amy?
We have any update on the Department of Consumer Affairs and their policy as of January 1st as it relates to teams?
Yeah, so we did finally get a third round of questions answered. I think we all got it from CTR, right? It was that FAQ number 3. So I am preparing end of this week or early next week to have another meeting just to kind of review what that looks like. There are a couple of questions that I've posed to the state that have yet to be answered. So I'm looking to try and get clarity around those specific ones. And yet it is definitely time for another meeting. Look for the end of this week, Friday or Monday of next week, for that to be on the calendar. I'll have those decisions made by tomorrow at this time and blast that out to everybody. So we can just sit and kind of talk through what that looks like and give people some direction. Anything else? Going once? Going twice? All right, guys, I hope this was helpful. Remember, step number 1 for you is just always have a conversation with your team leader. Between Dan and Steve and Carlos, they can be really, really helpful about pointing you in the right direction about some next steps, and make sure that you're dotting I's and crossing T's inside of the Market Center to allow you to have the conversations with the talented people that you want to have and not kind of step all over the process. I would hate for you to be in dialogue with someone only to find out that they haven't gone through this kind of education and had conversations in the Market Center and somehow invalidate them from pursuing you. So let's make sure that you start with your team leader or this conversation first with whatever you're thinking and go from there. Guys, have an awesome one. See you soon. Hey, 3 o'clock if you want to talk about real estate investment opportunities.